From several weeks in Turkey and the Arab world, and was really struck by a number of trends which are taking place, which I think are going to be decisive in terms of what's going to happen over the course of the next half decade to a decade. One of them is the whole issue of defense spending. It's very, very interesting, but the shakeup in the world economy of the last couple of years and the weakness of the structure of the economy in so many countries is really going to come back to hit the defense budgets. We see it already in Europe, even in the UK, where the new Prime Minister Cameron has called for very dramatic cuts. We're going to be talking about cuts in the nature of 15% or more in many countries throughout Europe. And eventually, the unspoken thing is everybody says it's going to happen in the United States too. There's no possible way with a weakened economy that we can continue to spend at this level. Ironically, even some of those I spoke to who are friendly with for example, the Iranian government, worry about the disproportionate amount of money that's being put into the military in that country, and the idea that we saw with the breakup of the Soviet Union, what happens when a disproportionate share of the nation's GDP goes into military. And there are a lot of signs coming from all over the region I just visited that this is going to be a game changer, and how it's going to change and what it's going to mean for stability is something really significant. The other big area everybody's talking about is jobs. And I think the most impressive thing that I saw was in Damascus at a meeting of the Arab International Women's Forum. I was one of the few men that were there, and was glad that I was able to listen to the stories of not what the aspirations were, but what's actually being done to create jobs for women. And one of the most interesting facts that came up is the World Bank predicts that in the next decade, more jobs are going to be created by women in the global workforce and will account for more economic growth than even the economic growth of China and India combined. In other words, this harnessing global power of employing women is really very, very powerful. And we heard some wonderful stories. One of the most amazing to me was a UNDP Syrian government project which went to employ women, but also to help change their social status and to deal with the change of the society as well as creating jobs. And there was a wonderful interview with a woman, an elderly woman from a very conservative part of Syria, who said she was approached, would she like to have a small business where she could get a loan from this special program, but that she would have to learn how to read. And she immediately got very emotional, and she said, you know, I really want to learn how to read, but my husband doesn't want me to learn. And then she talked about how her children don't respect her because she could never help them with their homework, she could never help them answer questions about the wider world, and so that all that respect went to the father and not to her. And she said, I'm not going to make the same mistake with my grandchildren. And so she went back to her husband. He said, no, you can't. I don't want you to learn how to read. And she said, well then fine, I'm not going to take the job. I'm bringing extra income. You can imagine what happened. She got the job, she learned how to read. And the end of the interview, she talks about her sense of inner self-pride and accomplishment because her grandchildren are going to grow up to respect her. That kind of powerful story and that kind of a powerful unleashing of forces is very powerful. So on one hand you have the defense realities of not being able to spend what's being spent, and on the other hand you have the realities of the empowerment and creation of jobs and the role particularly of women. These are two of the kinds of pieces that we don't read about very much in the papers, but they need to be taken into an equation about what actually is going to happen and what we need to do. So these are more of these trends, but these are my two favorites.